In the year 2472, humanity had reached far beyond the homeworld. Hundreds of colonies floated between stars, connected by trade, politics, and uneasy peace. But even in this age of light-speed travel and giant cities in space, there were still mysteries that no one dared to touch. In the deep, cold edges of the galaxy, where maps turned blank and silence ruled, there were places marked as dead zones, places with no traffic, no records, and no reason to visit. Most people ignored them, but not everyone. In the isolated chambers of the Helios Deep Space Observatory, Dr. Mara Vance leaned over her console, eyes locked on a strange pattern on her screen. She was alone in the observation deck, surrounded by the soft hum of machines. For 3 nights, she had been tracking a faint signal that came from far beyond human territory. At first, she thought it was just static from a collapsing star. But the pattern kept repeating, too regular to be random. And tonight, she had finally caught enough of it to run a full analysis. Her fingers tapped fast across the keys. The signal contained structure, pulses, and gaps forming sequences. It wasn't alien, not exactly. It was familiar. Her stomach tightened. These were human code markers. Very old, but still recognizable. She called up the archives and ran a comparison. The result flashed in green across her screen. Match found. Pre-Exodus Earth Transmission Protocol. That made no sense. The Exodus era was over 600 years ago, when humanity first left Earth in massive generational ships. No one had used this protocol in centuries. "What are you doing out there?" she whispered to herself. The source was even stranger. The signal came from the Typhon system, a dark place beyond the outer colonies. Every star map in the central network listed it as unstable and uninhabitable, flagged with warnings. Avoid at all costs. No colony, no stations, no reason for anyone to be there. She began decoding the message. The more she unlocked, the colder she felt. It wasn't just a random broadcast, it was coordinates, several sets scattered far from any known route. And in between the coordinates were fragments of words, half broken by time. To survivors, guardians, awaken. The fragments felt like whispers from the grave. She pushed her headset closer. The last part of the message was badly damaged, but the words still burned into her mind. For those who survive. Awaken the Titans. Titans. The word carried weight. It felt ancient, heavy, dangerous. She didn't know why, but it pulled at her thoughts like a tide. She checked the time. She needed to report this to the Central Exploration Council, but she also knew how the council worked. If this was real, they would bury it in classified files, lock it away where no one could ever find it. She didn't want that. Her mind ran through names she could trust. There was only one. Captain Elias Rourke, commander of the long-range exploration ship Dauntless. He was not the kind to walk away from a mystery. She sent him a private, encrypted packet containing the signal data and coordinates. Then she sat back in her chair, feeling the walls of the observatory close in around her. Somewhere out there, in the dark, something human had been waiting for centuries. And it had just called her name. Across the galaxy, aboard the Dauntless. Captain Rourke read her message in silence. His ship was docked at a refueling station in the Vega Belt, but his eyes were already on the star charts. The Typhon system was a dead place, yes, but he had seen dead places before, and sometimes they were only sleeping. He closed the file, leaned back in his chair, and smiled faintly. "Titans, huh?" he muttered. "Let's see what ghosts you've got for me." He began preparations without alerting his crew to the true reason for their departure. It was better that way. Less fear, less second-guessing. But deep inside, Rourke felt that this mission would be different from any before. He didn't know that in following the signal, they would not only uncover a buried truth from humanity's past, but also wake something powerful enough to decide the fate of the galaxy. As the Dauntless detached from the station and slid into the star lanes, the Typhon system waited in silence. The signal continued its slow, patient repetition, pulsing out across the void like a heartbeat that had never stopped, waiting for the right ears to hear it. And now, someone had. The Dauntless moved through deep space like a silent predator, its black hull reflecting almost no light. Captain Elias Rourke stood on the bridge, watching the stars drift past on the main display. His crew thought they were heading for a standard survey mission in the outer sectors, but only Rourke knew the real destination. The encrypted data from Dr. Mara Vance sat on a secure terminal in his private quarters, a reminder of the strange coordinates and the final chilling words, "Awaken the Titans." He had not told them yet. Not until they were close enough that turning back would be impossible. Below deck, the engineering crew worked to fine-tune the ship's long-range drives. Navigation Officer Juno Hale studied the course projections, frowning as she realized the plotted route veered dangerously close to restricted space. "Captain," she called out, "we're heading towards a flagged zone. Typhon system. Are we authorized for this?" Rourke didn't flinch. "We're authorized by me," he said simply, his voice steady. Juno hesitated but nodded. She had served under Rourke long enough to know he didn't take detours without reason. Still, something about the way he kept glancing at the display made her uneasy. Days passed as they pushed deeper into the uncharted region. The usual traffic signals and transponder pings from other ships grew scarce, until they vanished completely. Out here, there were no trade lanes, no colonies, just endless black. The further they went, the more the crew felt the weight of isolation. Conversations in the mess hall grew quiet, as if everyone sensed they were heading somewhere they shouldn't. Rourke finally gathered them in the briefing room. The lights dimmed, and the display behind him lit up with the image of a pulsing waveform, the signal Mara had found. "This is what we're following," he began. Dr. Mara Vance at Helios Observatory picked it up. It's old, very old. Human origin, pre-Exodus. It contains coordinates, all pointing to Typhon. This system has been off the charts for centuries. Someone made sure no one went near it. He tapped a control, and the waveform shifted into partial text. The words appeared to survivors, guardians, awaken the Titans. Murmurs rippled through the crew. "What does it mean?" asked Lieutenant Kai Mercer. "No idea," Rourke replied, "but I intend to find out. If these Titans are real, they could be technology from before humanity left Earth. And if someone hid them, there's a reason." He didn't mention the possibility that the Titans might not be friendly. No point in adding fear before it was necessary. They entered the Typhon sector 2 days later. The system's star was dim, a dying red giant with only a few scattered planets and moons. The entire place felt wrong, as if the very space around them resisted their presence. Their sensors picked up strange energy readings, low, steady pulses, like the signal, but stronger here. As they approached the main planet listed in the coordinates, a massive electromagnetic field wrapped around the ship. Lights flickered. Communication systems went dead. "We've lost all contact with outside channels," Juno reported. "No signals in or out." Rourke nodded. "Expected that. We're in the dark now." The planet itself was a dead world, covered in cracked deserts and jagged mountain ranges, but the coordinates didn't point to the surface. They pointed to one of its moons. The moon was small, barren, and coated in ice, yet scans showed strange anomalies under its crust. Massive shapes buried deep. Shapes too regular to be natural. As the Dauntless descended toward the moon, the crew stared at the incoming feed. Beneath the translucent ice were outlines of colossal structures, some hundreds of meters long. They looked like the skeletal remains of machines. Those are ships," Mercer whispered. "Bigger than anything in the fleet." Not ships, Rourke said softly. Titans. The landing team prepared to set foot on the frozen surface. Rourke led them, accompanied by Juno, Mercer, and a group of engineers in heavy suits. The moment they stepped onto the ice, the air felt charged, almost alive. Their boots crunched over the frozen crust as they moved toward the largest of the buried shapes. They reached a jagged cliff where the ice had cracked open, revealing a section of dark metal beneath. It was ancient, weathered by time, yet still unbroken. Strange markings ran along its surface, symbols that looked like a mix of early human languages. Mara Vance's voice came over Rourke's private comm link from the observatory, using a narrow beam encrypted channel. "I'm seeing the feed from your suit camera," she said, excitement in her voice. "Those markings, they match ones I've seen in pre-Exodus ruins on Mars. You're standing on something older than our recorded space history." The engineers set up plasma cutters and began slicing through the ice and rock. Steam hissed around them as they worked, revealing more of the buried giant. What emerged was no simple warship. It was humanoid in shape. Towering limbs folded against a massive torso, its surface layered with armor plates thicker than any modern design. The head was bowed, as if the machine were sleeping. The moment they exposed its chest plate, the ground beneath them vibrated. Instruments spiked. A deep, resonant hum rolled through the ice, coming from inside the Titan. "Captain, something's powering up," Juno warned, stepping back. Panels along the Titan's surface lit with faint golden light. Lines of energy pulsed outward, flowing through cracks in the ice like veins. The hum grew louder. Then a sound echoed in their helmets, not from the outside, but directly in their minds. A voice. "Descendants of the Builders," it said, slow and heavy, each word like a drumbeat. "You have answered the call." Rourke's breath caught in his throat. The voice continued, "The war is not over. The Devourers will return. Awaken the others." The lights flared bright, blinding for a second, then faded to a steady glow. The Titan's eyes, two vast lenses, opened, casting beams across the frozen ground. Somewhere in the distance, beneath the ice, more hums began to stir. But before Rourke could respond, Juno's scanner beeped urgently. "Captain, multiple contacts inbound. Not human." Above the moon, in the silent dark, small black shapes streaked toward their position. Rourke switched to ship comms. "Dauntless, get the guns hot. We've got company." The Titan's voice returned, colder this time. "You are not ready." Then the ground shook again, not from the Titan, but from explosions in orbit. The Devourers had found them. The frozen ground shook as the first explosions echoed through the thin air of the moon, sending vibrations up through the boots of Captain Elias Rourke and his landing team. Above the jagged horizon, black dots grew larger against the pale glow of the dying star, enemy craft closing fast. The Dauntless's voice came over the comm, the tone sharp and urgent. "Captain, multiple unidentified ships inbound, fast movers. They're not answering hails." Rourke's eyes flicked toward the awakened Titan, its massive form still half buried in ice. The golden lines pulsing along its armor flared brighter, as if reacting to the approaching threat. The voice that had echoed in their minds returned, heavy and cold. "The Devourers are here." The name sent a chill through Rourke, though he didn't understand its full meaning yet. "All right," he snapped, turning to his team. "Juno, Mercer, back to the shuttle. Engineers, keep your gear running. We're not leaving this thing unprotected." The Titan's head slowly lifted, sending shards of ice falling away from its faceplate. The machine's eyes locked on the incoming enemy ships, and in that moment it no longer seemed dormant. It felt alive. Above, the first Devourer craft entered the moon's thin atmosphere, their hulls black and jagged like obsidian blades. Plasma fire streaked down, tearing into the ice near the excavation site. The Dauntless returned fire from orbit, its railguns, lighting the darkness. Rourke's team dove for cover behind natural ridges, the ice cracking under the impacts. The Titan moved. Its arms unfolded with slow, deliberate power, the sound like mountains grinding together. Massive servos groaned as it tore free from the last of the frozen crust. It rose to its full height, over 200 meters tall, casting a shadow that swallowed the landing site. Panels on its arms opened, revealing weapon arrays that glowed with the same golden light running through its armor. Without warning, it fired, lances of energy screaming upward, cutting through the sky. One Devourer craft exploded instantly, spiraling into the surface in a trail of flame and debris. Another dodged, but a second blast caught it, tearing it apart in a shower of molten shards. The remaining enemy ships broke formation, some retreating, others circling out of range. "Captain," Juno's voice came from the shuttle. "You're not going to believe this, but our scanners say that Thing's weapons are older than anything on record. But the energy output is beyond even modern dreadnoughts." Rourke didn't have time to wonder how that was possible. The Titan turned its head toward him, and once again the voice entered his mind. "One is not enough. The others must rise. Time is short." Rourke looked around the frozen wasteland. The shapes under the ice stretched for kilometers, dozens of Titans lying silent, waiting. If each one had the power of this giant, then they could be a fleet that could change the balance of the galaxy. But why were they buried here? And who had hidden them? The ground shuddered again, this time not from weapons fire, but from deep beneath the surface. A low rumble grew into a roar as ice cracked and split apart in multiple places around the horizon. Huge black spires thrust upward from the ground, structures long hidden, now pushing free. They looked like towers, but their surfaces were organic, almost alive. Mara's voice cut in from the observatory feed. "Captain, those aren't human. I'm cross-referencing now. They match patterns from destroyed colonies on the fringe worlds. That's Devourer architecture. They've been here before." That meant the Titans and the Devourers had fought here once, long ago. And if the Titans had been buried afterward, maybe it was to keep them safe, or to keep something worse from waking. The Dauntless reported more enemy signatures inbound, larger than before. This wasn't a skirmish, it was a hunt. Rourke knew they couldn't hold the site alone. "Dauntless, prepare to provide cover for extraction. We're pulling the landing crew, but we're not leaving without coordinates for the other Titans." The awakened giant seemed to hear him. It lowered its massive hand to the ground, palm open. Rourke didn't hesitate. He climbed onto the armored surface, feeling the hum of power through his boots. The Titan lifted him to its chest, where a section of armor shifted aside, revealing a circular control panel glowing with runes. "Place your hand," the voice instructed. Rourke pressed his palm to the surface, and a surge of light shot up. His arm. In an instant, images flooded his mind, maps of star systems marked with points of light. Each point pulsed like a heartbeat. He understood without explanation. These were the resting places of the other Titans. Then the vision shifted. He saw worlds burning, fleets breaking apart under swarms of black ships. A monstrous shape, larger than any Titan, loomed in the void, its surface covered in writhing shadows. The voice grew grim. "The Devourers return in greater numbers. The Builders are gone. Only you remain." The vision ended, and Rourke stumbled back, gasping. The Titan set him down, then turned toward the growing swarm of enemy ships now flooding the horizon. More plasma bolts rained down, carving burning scars into the ice. The Dauntless roared overhead, firing a continuous barrage to keep the attackers from closing in. "Captain, we have to go," Juno shouted over the comm. "If we stay, they'll box us in." Rourke looked up at the Titan, then at the distant shapes of the others still buried under the moon's crust. He hated leaving them, but without the means to awaken them quickly. They were just sleeping giants. "Pull back!" he ordered. The Titan didn't follow. Instead, it stepped forward, positioning itself between the retreating humans and the advancing Devourer forces. Its chest panels opened, unleashing a blinding column of energy that cut across the battlefield, obliterating half a dozen enemy ships in one shot. The ground shook violently under the force. As the landing team scrambled back to the shuttle, Rourke took one last look at the towering machine. It wasn't just defending them, it was holding the line, giving them time to escape. The shuttle blasted off, racing toward the Dauntless. Through the viewport, Rourke saw the Titan standing alone against the storm, golden light blazing against the black tide. The last thing he saw before they entered the safety of the Dauntless's hangar was a swarm of Devourer ships closing in around the moon, the Titan firing again and again, refusing to fall. As the Dauntless's engines roared to life and the ship accelerated away from the Typhon moon, Rourke knew they had only seen the beginning. The coordinates burned in his mind, a map to the rest of the Titans, and maybe to the galaxy's only hope. But he also knew the Devourers would not stop. They had found the scent, and now the hunt had begun. The Dauntless drifted through the cold black of deep space, its engines running at silent cruising speed to avoid detection. Inside the command deck, the air was tense. No one spoke for a long time after the escape from the Typhon moon. The memory of the awakened Titan standing alone against the swarm of Devourer ships still burned in everyone's minds. Captain Elias Rourke sat in his chair, staring at the star maps on the main display. The coordinates the Titan had placed in his mind were clear, points scattered across the galaxy, each one a possible resting place of another buried giant. But there were too many questions and not enough answers. Juno Hale broke the silence. "Captain, I have to ask, what exactly happened down there? That thing spoke to you, didn't it?" Rourke didn't deny it. "It spoke, and it showed me things. Images. A war, long before our time. The Devourers were part of it. And those Titans, they weren't just weapons. They were built for something bigger." Kai Mercer leaned forward from his station. "If they were built by humans, why does no one know about them? 600 years of recorded history and nothing in the archives?" Rourke's voice was low. "Because someone erased it. On purpose." In the quiet that followed, the ship's AI interrupted with a sudden chime. "Captain, incoming encrypted transmission." Rourke frowned. "From who?" "Source unknown," the AI replied, "but the encryption pattern matches the one embedded in the Typhon Titan's energy signature." Rourke gave a quick nod. "Put it through." The main display flickered, and then the image of a face appeared. But it wasn't alive. It was a projection of a human man, but built entirely of shifting lines of golden light. His features were sharp, his eyes deep and unreadable. The voice that spoke was the same one that had echoed in Rourke's mind. "You have escaped. The first Titan stands again, but the war is far from over." The crew exchanged glances, unsure if they were talking to a machine or something else entirely. "What are you?" Rourke asked. The figure tilted its head slightly. "I am the memory of a builder, preserved in the machine you awakened. Long ago, your kind, our kind, ruled the stars. We fought the Devourers when they first came. We won, but at great cost. Many of our worlds burned. To protect what remained, we hid our greatest weapons, the Titans, on forgotten worlds, far from the eyes of friend and foe alike." Juno frowned. "If you defeated them once, why are they back?" The AI's projection seemed to darken. "Because we never destroyed them. We only pushed them back into the dark. They have grown in number while we slept. The builders are gone now. You are all that remains of our bloodline." Rourke folded his arms. "And you want us to wake the rest of the Titans?" "Yes," the AI said. "The first Titan could not leave Typhon. Its systems are bound to its resting world, but the others can fight." You have been given the keys, the coordinates. But know this, each Titan will only respond to one who carries the blood of the builders. The genetic keys are scattered, hidden in the bloodlines of your people. Mercer muttered, "Great. So we're supposed to go on a galaxy-wide treasure hunt while an enemy swarm eats planets." The AI ignored his sarcasm. There is no other choice. Without the Titans, humanity will fall. Rourke leaned forward. "Tell me about the Devourers. What are they?" The projection hesitated, as if deciding how much to reveal. They are not one species. They are a plague, machines and flesh bound together, growing without limit. They consume not just matter, but knowledge, stripping worlds of life and memory alike. They were born of our own creation, a failed experiment to build a self-sustaining defense fleet. We gave them minds without limits. They gave themselves hunger. The bridge went silent. The crew absorbed the truth. The Devourers were humanity's mistake. "You're telling me we built our own enemy," Rourke said grimly. "Yes," the AI replied, "and now you must end them." Before anyone could speak again, the Dauntless's sensors pinged an alert. "Contact," Juno said sharply. 2. Ships dropping out of FTL, human signatures, but heavily armed. On the display, 2 sleek warships appeared, painted in the black and silver colors of the Sovereign Directorate, a powerful and notoriously secretive human faction. A comm signal came through, this time without encryption. "Dauntless, this is Commander Vera of the Directorate vessel Iron Crown. You will cut your engines and prepare for boarding. You are in violation of restricted zone protocol, and we are authorized to seize your vessel." Rourke's jaw tightened. "Guess they know where we've been." The Titan's AI spoke again in his mind only. "The Directorate has long sought the Titans. They believe they can control them. They cannot. If they take your coordinates, they will doom you all." Rourke opened a channel. "Iron Crown, we're on an authorized exploratory mission under Council mandate. You have no jurisdiction here." The reply was cold. "Authorization revoked. Surrender or be fired upon." Rourke cut the channel and turned to his crew. "Battle stations, we're not letting them take what we've found." The Dauntless roared to life, engines flaring as the 2 Directorate warships closed in. Railgun rounds streaked past, rocking the ship. Rourke's hands moved over the controls, directing evasive maneuvers while Juno plotted a course through a nearby asteroid field. The Sovereign ships pursued, their weapons hammering the Dauntless's shields. The AI's voice returned, urgent. "If they capture you, the Titans will never awaken. But I can help. I can interface with your systems and enhance your weapons. Briefly." Rourke hesitated. Letting an unknown AI into the Dauntless's core systems could be dangerous. But without an edge, they wouldn't survive. "Do it," he said. The moment the AI connected, the Dauntless's consoles lit with golden light. Weapon power spiked, targeting reticles sharpened, and the ship's railguns fired with a speed and accuracy the crew had never seen. The first enemy ship took a direct hit to its engines, spiraling away in a burst of flame. The second broke pursuit, realizing too late that the Dauntless's missile batteries were already locked. 2 precision strikes ripped through its hull, leaving it drifting powerless. As the glow faded from the ship's systems, the AI's voice came again. "You must move quickly. The Directorate will not stop, and the Devourers are closing in. Find the keys. Awaken the fleet." The transmission cut out, leaving only the hum of the Dauntless's engines. Rourke looked at the map of coordinates again. Each point was now a race against time, against both human enemies and the alien plague that had nearly ended the galaxy once before. He turned to his crew. "We have our mission. No turning back now." No one argued. The ghosts of the past had spoken, and the fate of the future now lay in their hands. The Dauntless cut through the black of space at full burn, the coordinates for the first genetic key locked into navigation. The Titan's AI had marked it on a remote frontier world named Halros 3, a cold and wind-swept planet with no known settlements and little reason for anyone to visit. Rourke stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the star map as the ship moved closer to its target. Every part of him knew the clock was ticking. Between the Sovereign Directorate and the Devourers, there was no room for delays. Juno Hale worked at the sensor station, scanning ahead. Halros 3 is uninhabited, she reported. No heat signatures, no orbital traffic. Wait, I'm picking up debris fields. Fresh ones. Rourke's jaw tightened. Fresh debris meant someone had been here recently, and it probably wasn't a friendly survey team. As the Dauntless entered the system, the wreckage came into view. Half-burned starships drifted in the void, some with hulls melted like wax, others split apart in jagged shards. The blackened remains of a civilian cargo hauler spun slowly past the viewport, its registry unreadable. "This wasn't a battle," Mercer said quietly. "This was slaughter." The AI's voice came through the ship's internal comm, low and grim. "They are here, the Devourers." No sooner had the words been spoken than the sensors screamed with new contacts, faint at first, then multiplying rapidly. Small, angular craft emerged from behind the largest debris clusters, their surfaces shifting like liquid metal, reflecting the starlight in unnatural patterns. The moment they locked onto the Dauntless, they accelerated with frightening speed. "Battle stations!" Rourke barked. The crew moved with practiced precision. Shields came up, weapons charged, and the engines shifted to evasive thrust patterns. The first wave of Devourer ships hit fast, spitting streams of searing plasma that splashed across the Dauntless's shields, draining their charge in seconds. Railguns answered, shredding two of the smaller attackers, but more swarmed in to replace them. They moved like predators, striking from multiple angles at once, forcing the Dauntless to divide its fire. "They're not trying to destroy us outright," Juno said through clenched teeth. "They're herding us, pushing us toward the planet." Rourke saw it too, but if they broke formation to avoid it, they'd be overrun. "Fine," he muttered. "We'll let them think they're winning." He ordered the ship to angle toward Halros 3, dipping low into its upper atmosphere. The thin clouds turned to streaks as the Dauntless roared over the planet's icy surface. Enemy ships followed, cutting through the sky like black arrows. The AI's voice returned, guiding them. "The key lies in the ruins of an old builder outpost in the northern wastes, but beware, the Devourers will guard it. They fear what you seek." The Dauntless dropped a small strike team onto the planet, including Rourke, Juno, Mercer, and a squad of Marines. The landing craft hit the frozen ground hard, kicking up clouds of snow. Above them, the battle in the sky raged on, bright flashes of gunfire lighting the storm. The team pushed forward across the ice plains, the wind howling in their helmets. Through the whiteout, the ruins slowly came into view. Towering arches of black stone, half buried in snow, their surfaces etched with the same ancient markings seen on the Titan at Typhon. But they were not alone. Shapes moved in the storm. Ahead, tall, spindly machines with blade-like limbs and glowing red eyes. The moment they detected the humans, they charged. The Marines opened fire, rail carbines punching holes through the attackers, but the Devourer drones were fast, darting from cover to cover with unnatural speed. One leapt over a snowbank, its bladed arms slicing through a Marine's armor before Rourke blasted it apart at point-blank range. "Keep moving!" he shouted. They fought their way through the ruins, every step a battle. At the center of the ancient structure, they found a circular platform glowing faintly under the snow. The AI's voice returned, faint but urgent. "The key is beneath. Place your hand on the seal." Rourke knelt, brushing away the snow to reveal a metallic surface carved with interlocking rings. He pressed his hand against it. The metal flared with golden light and a panel slid open, revealing a small capsule no larger than his fist. Inside, suspended in a clear field, was a vial of shimmering liquid. "Builder bloodline essence," the AI confirmed. "This will awaken one Titan in the northern systems. But now you must survive." As if on cue, a roar echoed through the ruins. Not mechanical, but deep and guttural. The storm parted, and a new devourer construct emerged from the blizzard. It was massive, moving on 4 armored legs, its body a grotesque fusion of machine and bone, its surface writhing with black tendrils. Twin cannons unfolded from its back, glowing with the same sickly red light as its eyes. It opened fire immediately, blasting chunks of stone into the air. The Marines scattered as Rourke ducked behind a fallen pillar. "We can't fight that." "Thing head on!" Juno yelled over the comm. The AI's voice cut in sharply. "Its core is exposed when it fires. Strike then!" Timing their shots, the team focused on the brief moments when the creature's armor plates shifted to vent heat. Mercer's railgun fired a perfect shot through the gap, sending the monster reeling back with an unearthly screech. But it wasn't enough to bring it down. "Dauntless to ground team," came the call from orbit. "We've cleared a window. Get to the extraction point now, or you're not getting off this rock." Rourke gritted his teeth. "Fall back!" The team moved fast, the monster giving chase, tearing through the ruins like paper. They reached the extraction site just as the landing craft swooped in. Plasma fire from above rained down on the devourer beast, slowing it just enough for the team to pile aboard. The craft blasted off, streaking back toward the safety of the Dauntless. In orbit, the fight was still brutal. The devourers swarmed in greater numbers now, as if the retrieval of the key had enraged them. The Dauntless's hull shook under repeated impacts, shields flaring dangerously low. Rourke sprinted from the landing bay to the bridge, slamming the vial into a secure case. "Punch us out of here," he ordered. The AI's voice came one last time as the ship jumped to FTL. "You have drawn first blood in the war that never ended. The devourers will not forget this. And they will not. Stop!" As the stars stretched into streaks and the Dauntless vanished into hyperspace, Rourke knew they had won only a small victory. The first Titan beyond Typhon could soon be awakened, but so too had the enemy's attention been fully fixed on them. The forgotten war had begun again. The Dauntless emerged from hyperspace in the cold shadow of a red dwarf star, its hull scarred from the battle over Halros III. The crew was exhausted, the ship's systems strained to the limit, but the vial containing the Builder bloodline essence was secure. Rourke stood on the bridge, his eyes scanning the dark void beyond the viewport. For a brief moment, it seemed they had a chance to breathe, but the calm broke when the AI's sensors detected a large vessel approaching. The incoming ship was sleek and angular, painted in the black and gold colors of the Sovereign Directorate. Its silhouette was unmistakable. The Oathkeeper, one of the Directorate's most powerful cruisers, commanded by Captain Kalen Drix. Rourke's history with Drix was complicated. They had fought side by side years ago during the Rim sieges, but Drix had since become a loyal enforcer for the Directorate's High Council, a man who valued the chain of command above all else. "They're hailing us," Juno reported. Rourke nodded, and the main screen lit up with the image of Drix. The captain's sharp eyes flicked over the crew before settling on Rourke. "I heard about Halros III," Drix said, "and about the artifact you recovered. You're lucky we arrived when we did. The Devourers have been seen massing forces in nearby systems." Rourke narrowed his eyes. "And you just happened to be here?" Drix's expression didn't change. "Orders from the Council. They want to help you, Rourke. The Titans could be a powerful weapon against our enemies, but only if the Directorate controls them." The words sent a ripple of tension through the bridge. Mercer muttered under his breath, "Here we go." Rourke kept his voice steady. The Titans were built to protect all of humanity, not to be used as tools by politicians. Drix gave a small, cold smile. You still believe in that old idealism. But the galaxy isn't the same as it was. If you want to survive, you need an empire to protect you. You have one key. The Directorate can help you find the others. In return, you hand over the vial. There was silence on the bridge. The offer sounded like help, but Rourke knew the cost. If the Directorate controlled the Titans, they would use them to dominate every colony, every free world, crushing any who resisted. Not happening, Rourke said finally. Drix's smile faded. Then you leave me no choice. Moments later, the Oathkeeper's massive cannons powered up, their targeting systems locking onto the Dauntless. Rourke didn't hesitate. Evasive! Get us out of here! The Dauntless twisted away as golden lances of energy tore past, shaking the smaller ship. We can't outrun them, Juno shouted. They're faster, stronger. She stopped as another blip appeared on the sensors. A swarm of Devourer craft was dropping out of hyperspace right between them and the Oathkeeper. The Directorate cruiser opened fire immediately, its beams slicing through the alien ships, but for everyone destroyed, 2 more appeared. They're after both of us, Mercer realized. The Devourers don't care whose side we're on. Rourke's mind raced. This could be their only chance to escape Drix without a direct fight. Patch me through to the Oathkeeper, he ordered. Drix appeared again, his expression tight as his ship shook from alien fire. If we don't work together right now, we both die, Rourke told him. We can settle our disagreement later, but for now, you take the right flank. We'll take the left and we punch a hole through their formation. Drix hesitated, then gave a single nod. Agreed. But after this, we talk. The 2 ships moved as one, their combined fire tearing into the Devourer swarm. The Dauntless's railguns shredded the smaller craft, while the Oathkeeper's main cannons obliterated the larger ones. Even so, the aliens fought with terrifying ferocity, their living metal hulls regenerating between hits, their weapons cutting through shields like paper. A massive Devourer carrier emerged from the dark, releasing more of its insect-like attack ships. The Oathkeeper took a direct hit to its starboard side, venting fire and debris into space. Rourke saw the opportunity and fired the Dauntless's last heavy torpedo, striking the carrier dead center. The explosion was blinding, the shockwave scattering the remaining alien craft. The surviving Devourers retreated into the void, leaving both human ships battered but alive. Drix's face reappeared on the screen, pale but still calm. You saved my ship, Rourke. I'll give you that. But my orders haven't changed. We're taking the vial. Rourke had expected nothing less. Then you'll have to catch us first. Before Drix could reply, the Dauntless's engines roared, jumping to hyperspace in a burst of light. The stars stretched into streaks, and the Directorate cruiser was left behind. In the silence that followed, the crew finally allowed themselves to breathe. Mercer broke it with a low whistle. We just made enemies out of both the Directorate and the Devourers. That's some record. Rourke leaned back in his chair. Enemies mean we're doing something that matters. The AI's voice came over the speakers, calm as ever. The next key lies far from Directorate space, on the rogue planet called Blackspire. But be warned, it is not unguarded, and there are other forces that know of it. Juno frowned. Other forces? As in more aliens? Not exactly, the AI replied. Something older. Something the Devourers themselves fear. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. After Halros 3, they had thought the worst was behind them, but now it was clear the path ahead would be even more dangerous. Rourke rose from his chair. Set course for Blackspire, and double-check our stealth systems. If the Directorate wants the Titans, they'll be on our tail. The Dauntless turned toward its next destination, its hull still scorched from battle, its crew carrying the weight of knowing they were now hunted by two of the most dangerous forces in the galaxy. Yet despite the odds, a fire burned in Rourke's eyes. The forgotten fleet was out there waiting to be awakened, and no empire, no alien swarm, no ancient horror was going to stop them from finding it. The Dauntless dropped out of hyperspace into a darkness so complete it felt like the universe had simply ended. Blackspire was a rogue planet drifting in interstellar space, far from any star's warmth or light. The ship's sensors struggled to map its surface, revealing jagged mountains of ice, frozen oceans, and a sky lit only by the cold glow of distant galaxies. The crew gathered on the bridge, silent as they looked at the lifeless world. "It's like looking at a grave," Mercer muttered. Juno's voice was quiet. "And we're about to dig something up." The AI projected a map, showing the location of the next builder key deep within a canyon near the planet's equator. "Caution," it warned. "This world is not as empty as it appears. Scans detect movement, patterns not consistent with geological activity." Rourke studied the map. "Movement? There's no life here." "Life," the AI interrupted, "comes in many forms." That didn't comfort anyone. The Dauntless descended through thin, icy air, its landing thrusters kicking up clouds of frozen dust as it touched down near the canyon. The crew suited up in heavy environmental gear. Even with heated suits, the 170 degrees temperature would kill an unprotected human in seconds. The planet was silent, except for the crunch of their boots on ice and the faint hiss of their breath systems. The canyon's walls rose like black glass, jagged and sharp, reflecting the pale starlight. "This place gives me the creeps," Mercer whispered. As they moved deeper into the canyon, they found massive structures buried under layers of ice, towering pillars, strange arches, and walls carved with alien symbols that predated human history. "These are builder ruins," Juno said in awe. "Older than anything we've seen before." The key's signal grew stronger, guiding them toward a massive gate half buried in ice. The metal was unlike anything Rourke had seen. Dark, almost absorbing light, and warm to the touch despite the freezing air. The AI's voice came over their helmet comms. "Warning! The gate is sealed with a Guardian protocol. Once opened, it will awaken." "Awaken what?" Mercer asked, but the AI did not answer. Rourke placed his gloved hand on the gate. The moment he did, the ice began to crack and fall away, as if the structure itself was shaking off centuries of frost. The gate split open with a deep metallic groan, revealing a tunnel that led into total darkness. They stepped inside, their helmet lamps cutting narrow beams through the black. The walls were covered in more symbols, some glowing faintly as they passed. The air was warmer here, but heavy, almost alive. After several minutes, the tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber. At its center was the builder key, a tall crystal spire pulsing with soft blue light, encased in a transparent dome of energy. As they approached, the ground trembled. A sound, low and resonant, rolled through the chamber like distant thunder. Juno's voice trembled. That wasn't the ice shifting. From the shadows at the far edge of the chamber, something began to move. At first, Rourke thought it was part of the wall, black, ridged, motionless. Then it unfolded. Limbs like spiked blades scraped the ground. Its body was a shifting mass of dark plates, its head, or what passed for one, nothing but a smooth, featureless dome that reflected their lights. It moved silently, unnaturally fast for something so large. "Back!" Rourke shouted, but it was already between them and the exit. The AI's voice cut through the panic. "Designation, Sentinel, Pre-Builder Construct, Task, Protect Key at all costs." Mercer raised his rifle and fired. The rounds sparked harmlessly off the creature's armor. It lunged, a blur of black metal, and Mercer barely rolled aside in time. Rourke drew his plasma cutter, slashing at one of its limbs. The blade bit deep, spraying molten fragments, and the sentinel recoiled with a hiss like steam escaping. "The dome!" Juno shouted. "We need to drop the shield!" She sprinted to a console near the crystal spire, her fingers flying over alien controls, while Rourke and Mercer tried to keep the sentinel's attention. The creature's movements were precise, almost intelligent. It targeted weak points in their armor, forced them into corners, and moved to block Juno's path whenever possible. Rourke realized they couldn't kill it, only slow it down. "Mercer, aim for the joints!" The two of them struck in quick succession, forcing the sentinel to stagger back. Juno shouted, "Almost there!" and slammed her hand down on a control pad. The energy dome around the crystal vanished with a sharp hum. At the same moment, the sentinel let out a piercing metallic screech and charged. Rourke grabbed the crystal with one hand and fired his cutter into the ground at his feet, blasting a hole through the floor. The ice gave way and they fell into an underground river of half-frozen water. The current dragged them through narrow tunnels while the sentinel's echoing screeches faded behind them. They surfaced in a cavern, lit by the faint glow of bioluminescent fungi clinging to the walls. Gasping, freezing, they dragged themselves onto the ice. The crystal was still in Rourke's grip, its light steady and calm despite the chaos. "We need to get back to the ship," Juno said through chattering teeth, "before it finds another way around." The trek back was a blur of exhaustion and tension. Every shadow seemed to move. Once, far above on a ridge, they saw the silhouette of the sentinel watching them before vanishing again. When they finally reached the Dauntless and sealed the airlock, it felt like a miracle. On the bridge, the AI confirmed the crystal as the second builder key. 2 of 5, it said. The next lies in the ruins of Etherian, a world claimed by the Devourers. Rourke sat heavily in his chair, staring at the dark planet shrinking on the view screen. "That thing," Mercer said quietly, "wasn't alive, but it sure as hell wanted us dead." "It wasn't hate," Juno said. "It was duty. That's worse. You can't reason with duty." Rourke didn't reply. In his mind, the sentinel's faceless head still loomed in the dark, waiting for the next intruder. If the builders had left guardians like that on every world, then finding the remaining keys was going to be far harder and far deadlier than they had imagined. The Dauntless entered the Etherian system under silent running, its engines dimmed and all non-essential systems offline to avoid detection. The stars here seemed dimmer, as if the light itself feared to come too close. Etherian was once a jewel. World its surface covered in vast crystal forests and shimmering seas. But centuries ago, the Devourers came and turned it into a graveyard. From orbit, the crew could see burned continents, broken cities, and strange dark growths spreading like veins across the land. The AI spoke in a low tone, as if it too did not want to be heard. "The third builder key is located within the central spire of Etherian Prime. Coordinates marked, but be warned, the Devourers still inhabit the ruins." Rourke studied. "The display? We get in, we get out. No heroics." Juno nodded, but her eyes lingered on the world below. Mercer muttered, "Heroics are the only way we've stayed alive so far." The Dauntless descended into the planet's thin, smoky atmosphere, ash, drifting, like snow across the viewports. The city they approached had once been a marvel of light and glass. Now it was a skeleton. Towers shattered streets, choked with black vines that pulsed faintly as if alive. The ship landed in what used to be a plaza. The air outside was poisonous, so they sealed their helmets before stepping into the ruins. Every sound seemed too loud in the silence, the crunch of their boots, the hiss of their breath. Even the wind was wrong, carrying faint whispers that made Mercer glance over his shoulder more than once. The crystal spire was visible above the rooftops, jagged but still standing. Its base was surrounded by the black growths which moved subtly when they thought no one was watching. Rourke kept his rifle ready. The AI had warned them that the Devourers were not just creatures, but a hive intelligence capable of sensing intrusions. The further they went, the worse. The streets became, walls were fused with strange organic matadors melted into shapes. That looked almost like mouths. Once they passed what had been a fountain, now a pit filled with black liquid that rippled, though there was no breeze. Juno whispered, "Keep moving. Don't look too long at anything." The spire's entrance was blocked by a massive knot of growth black tendrils wrapped so tightly they looked like steel. Rourke approached, and the mass twitched, opening just enough to reveal a narrow passage. "It's letting us in," Mercer said uneasily. "That's not good news." Inside the spire. The air was warmer, heavy, with a smell like rotting metal. The walls were still the original builder crystal, but they were veined with black threads as if the Devourers were consuming the structure from within. The AI spoke softly. "This is dangerous. The hive may be aware of us now." They moved quickly, climbing a spiral ramp that circled the inner wall. The higher they went, the more the black growths pulsed as if following their progress. Sometimes they heard movement above or below, quick skittering sounds that stopped the moment they turned their lights that way. After what felt like an hour, they reached the chamber at the top. In the center was the builder key, a crystalline sphere floating inside a cage of light. Unlike the last key, this one was dim. Its glow flickering weakly, Juno moved toward the controls, but the AI's tone sharpened. Movement approaching from all directions. Rourke swore Mercer took position by the door covering the ramp. Juno's hands flew over, the alien console trying to drop the shield around the sphere. The first Devourer appeared in the doorway. It was nothing like the mechanical sentinel they had faced on Blackspire. This was flesh and shadow, its body a shifting mass of tendrils, and fangs its eyes, dozens of glowing points moving independently. Mercer opened fire bursts of plasma, lighting up the room, but the creature didn't fall. Instead, it split apart, flowing across the floor and walls. The moment it touched the crystal walls, they blackened and cracked. Two more came from the ramp behind them. Juno shouted, "Almost got it." Rourke used his cutter to sever a tendril that was reaching for her, the severed piece writhing like a living snake. The shield around the sphere flickered. Once then died, Rourke grabbed the key, its weightless form humming in his hands. The Devourers reacted instantly, their movements becoming frenzied. Mercer tossed a thermal grenade. The blast filled the chamber with searing light and smoke, but the creatures were already reforming. Rourke shouted, "Move!" and they ran sprinting down the ramp with the Devourers in pursuit. The walls around them seemed to close in black tendrils lashing out. They fought their way through slicing and blasting anything that got too close. One tendril caught Mercer's arm and yanked him toward a side wall that opened like a mouth. Rourke lunged, grabbing him and firing point-blank into the thing until it released him. They burst out into the open plaza and ran. For the Dauntless, the ship's guns roared, covering their retreat as the Devourers poured from the buildings like a living tide. The ramp closed the moment they were aboard, and the Dauntless lifted off engines screaming as they punched through. The thick atmosphere, black tendrils lashed up from the streets, some nearly reaching the hull before falling back into the ruins. Only when they were in orbit did anyone speak. Juno collapsed into a chair, breathing hard. Mercer checked his suit wear. The tendril had grabbed him. The black residue was eating through the armor slowly like acid. The AI's voice was calm but grim. "The Devourers will not forget you now. You have what they want, and they will come for it." Rourke placed the builder key next to the others in the containment case. 3 of 5, he said quietly. "But each one feels harder to get than the last." The AI displayed the next coordinates. "The 4th key lies in the shattered halo, a ring world lost to time and war. But there is something you should know. Captain Rourke frowned. What the AI paused before it fell, the halo was not abandoned, it was locked from the inside. The Dauntless dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the shattered halo, and the crew saw at once why the name fit. The great ring world stretched across the black like a broken crown, its massive arcs drifting apart but still connected in places. By shattered bridges and twisted beams, pieces of the ring floated freely, each one the size of a small moon, and some still glimmered faintly with old lights, though they were centuries past their prime. The AI's voice was quiet. The fourth builder. Key is deep within the central control segment, but be warned, Captain records show the halo was sealed before the war even began. Rourke stared at the ruins. Sealed from the inside means someone locked themselves in and never came out, Mercer muttered, or something locked everyone else out. The Dauntless navigated between the drifting debris, sliding past massive support towers and empty cities clinging to the inner curve of the ring. Occasionally, they saw movement in the distance, but it vanished. Before their scanners could confirm, Juno frowned. There's power readings here, weak but steady. That means something's still running. The AI confirmed. Central systems are partially active. The lock was intentional and the access codes are unknown. They reached a massive breach in the ring structure and slipped inside where the halo's interior was visible above them like a sky built upside down. Far away, the curve rose into clouds and strange, towering shapes that might have been forests or machines. The broken section where they entered was silent and cold, its buildings half crushed and covered in frost. The Dauntless landed near what the AI marked as an access tower, the main route to the control core. The crew stepped out, weapons ready. The air was thin but breathable, the silence so deep it made their footsteps sound too loud. As they moved through the empty streets, Juno noticed something odd. There are no bodies, no signs of a fight, just absence. The AI spoke. That may be because the population was removed, not destroyed. Mercer didn't like the sound of that. Removed by what they reached the access tower, a spire of black metal and glass that seemed untouched by time. The doors were locked, but when Juno touched the panel, it lit up as if recognizing her. The AI sounded surprised. That should not happen. Captain Rourke eyed the panel suspiciously. Open it. Juno did, and the doors slid apart, revealing a dark shaft that descended deep into the halo's core. They took the lift down, the silence pressing in until Mercer finally muttered, "I hate this place." The doors opened into a huge chamber with a single walkway stretching across a chasm of humming energy. In the center was a sphere larger than the Dauntless, itself surrounded by floating rings that turned slowly without any visible support. The AI's voice was tense. That is the control nexus. The builder key will be inside, but the systems here are awake. As they crossed the walkway, faint blue lights appeared along the walls following their movements. Juno whispered, "We're being scanned." Before they reached the sphere, a voice echoed through the chamber, deep calm and not entirely human. "You are not of the builders yet. You carry their mark." Rourke stopped scanning the shadows. "Who's there?" The voice answered. "I am the Warden, last keeper of the halo. I was left here to guard what remains and ensure it is never used against the galaxy again." Mercer called out, "Guard against what? Silence." Then, the Warden said, "Against the Devourers and those who would free them. The Devourers were locked away here." Captain Rourke's jaw tightened. "We've been collecting builder keys to stop the Devourers." The Warden's tone sharpened. "And how do you know? You are not being used by them." The AI interjected. "This crew acts with purpose aligned to the builder intent." The Warden ignored it. "You may take the key, but if you do, the Halo's seal will weaken and the Devourers will sense it." Rourke exchanged. a look with Juno and Mercer. If we don't take it, they win anyway. The warden was silent for a long moment. Then come forward and claim it, but know that the path ahead will be darker than you imagine. The sphere's surface split open, revealing the crystalline key floating in a column of light. Juno stepped forward and reached for it, but the moment her fingers touched it, alarms blared, and the floating rings around the sphere began to spin faster. The warden's voice boomed. "They have found us. Devourer ships are entering the system." The walkway shuddered. Rourke grabbed the key and shouted, "Move!" The crew ran back toward the lift as the chamber shook. Around them, panels burst open and strange insect-like drones poured out firing. Streams of burning plasma. Mercer and Rourke returned fire-blasting drones from the air, while Juno hacked the lift controls to make it move faster. The lift shot upward, but something massive struck the tower from outside, sending it swaying violently. When the doors opened, they ran into the open just as a shadow fell over the city above them. Through the breach in the ring, they could see black ships sliding in sleek and silent like predators. The AI warned multiple Devourer vessels inbound, intercept. In 2 minutes, the Dauntless took off engines, screaming debris raining down as parts of the halo collapsed behind them. The warden's voice came one last time across the comm. "You have doomed this place, but perhaps saved others. Go before it is." "Too late." Rourke gritted his teeth. "We'll make it worth it." The black ships pursued their forms, twisting unnaturally, as if space itself bent around them. The Dauntless weaved through the drifting ring segments, using them as cover, returning fire when they could. But the enemy kept coming. Finally, Juno shouted, "I've got a course plotted to slingshot around the inner arc and jump us out." Rourke gave the order. The Dauntless skimmed the curve of the halo engines, flaring bright a black ship, nearly clipping their tail before they vanished into hyperspace. The crew sat in silence for a moment. Then Mercer spoke. "That warden didn't trust us, and maybe he was right." Rourke placed the fourth builder key with the others. "Only one left." The AI's voice was low and grim. "The final key rests in the heart of the grave nexus, a place even the builders feared to tread. And Captain, there is something you must understand. The grave nexus is not abandoned. It is alive." The Dauntless emerged from hyperspace at the edge of a swirling black nebula, and the crew immediately felt the weight of it on their minds. The grave nexus hung in the center like a massive sphere of shifting metal plates and jagged spires pulsing, faint red light into the surrounding darkness. It was not orbiting anything yet. The nebula seemed to swirl around it like water around a drain. The AI's voice was low. "Captain, the Nexus is not just a structure. It is alive, or at least something. Inside it is alive. The builder key rests deep within, but entering will mean constant exposure to its influence." Rourke stared at the swirling clouds on the view screen. "We've come this far. We finish it." Mercer muttered. "Or it finishes us." As they approached the surface of the Nexus, the plates shifted, forming a vast opening like the jaws of some ancient beast. The Dauntless entered cautiously, and the moment they crossed the threshold, every light on the ship flickered. The AI reported energy. "Drain detected something is feeding on our systems." The inside of the Nexus was unlike anything they had seen, giant corridors of living metal that pulsed like veins, strange shapes moving in the shadows as if the walls themselves were alive. Juno's hands were tight on the controls. "This place hates us." The AI responded. "It does not hate us, it hungers." They reached a massive chamber at the core where a swirling mass of black tendrils surrounded a crystalline structure the size of a shuttle suspended in midair. The builder key was clearly visible inside, glowing faintly, but the tendrils shifted toward it like predators guarding prey. A voice unlike the warden's spoke directly into their minds, not through sound, but as thoughts that carried. "Pain and cold, I remember you." Not you, but your kind. You are the thieves who locked us away. Rourke's teeth clenched. We are here to end you. The voice laughed a sound that made their vision blur. You cannot end what has no beginning. Take the key, and you will break the seal entirely, Mercer shouted back. We're not leaving without it. The tendrils withdrew slightly, as if taunting them. The AI warned Captain, this entity is using psychic interference. If you take the key, we must be ready to leave instantly. The Dauntless hovered close, and Rourke, with Juno and Mercer, suited up to go in on foot. They stepped onto a narrow bridge of metal that seemed to grow beneath their feet, leading to the crystal. As they drew closer, the tendrils moved. Like serpents striking at them, Rourke's rifle flashed. Mercer blasted apart 3 of the creatures, but more emerged from the walls. The AI guided their movements, marking weak points in the tendrils. They fought their way to the crystal, and Rourke smashed the containment with a single blow, pulling free the final builder key. The moment he touched it, a shockwave ripped through the chamber, the walls screaming like living things. The voice roared, You have freed us and doomed yourselves. Entire sections of the Nexus began to collapse, plates shifting violently as if the whole structure was trying to crush them. The crew sprinted back to the Dauntless, chased by walls closing in. Mercer was nearly caught by a tendril, but Juno shot it apart. At the last second, they dove into the airlock, and the ship blasted out through the collapsing corridors. Pieces of the Nexus broke away, and in the view screen they saw shapes emerging, vast shadowed figures moving through the nebula, each one the size of a city. The AI's voice was tight. Captain, these are devourer entities. Not ships, they are alive, and they are no longer contained. The Dauntless jumped to hyperspace, but not before one of the creatures turned its many eyes toward them, and Rourke felt a cold voice in his mind. We will find you wherever you run. When they emerged back into normal space, the galaxy seemed strangely quiet, but the AI confirmed long-range scans show devourer movement across multiple sectors. The seals are breaking faster than projected. Juno turned from her console. Captain, even with all 5 keys, what now? Rourke placed the final builder key in the device they had assembled. The moment it was complete, the AI's tone changed. The array is ready, but there is something you must know. Captain, the builder weapon was never meant to destroy the Devourers, only to trap them again in a new prison, and the energy required will burn out the system that uses it. The crew realized at once that meant ship, a person, something would have to stay behind, Mercer swore. Then this was always going to be a one-way trip. Rourke stood looking at the glowing keys and the device at their center. Then we find where the builders wanted us to use it, and we finish this. If it costs us everything, so be it. The AI's voice was soft. The location is already in your nav system, Captain, but you should know it lies at the heart of the galactic core, a place where no human ship has ever returned from the Dauntless. Turned toward its final course, the crew silent, each of them, knowing what waited there might be worse than the Nexus itself. Far behind in the black, the shapes of the Devourers moved slowly but relentlessly, following the scent of their freedom and the promise of the final battle to come.